Hey! Looks like my plan to freeze myself in cryogenic stasis until Super Heavy Samurai became playable paid off! I've been in there since Zexal, but now it's time to release the Heavy Strong style!
Have you read the new cards?
What? It's super heavy. How hard could it be? They still attack in defense position, right?
No.
Oh, are we just doing trumpet loops then?
No.
They're still playing Big Benkai, right?
In a sense, yes.
What exactly does the deck do?
I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. They put a bunch of material on field that you use to make Appaloosa and Baron.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-minute testing. Yes, this is a little later than I would have liked to release this video, but I've been basically sitting on the edge of my seat for the past 2 weeks waiting for the list to drop. Now that I'm committing to recording the video, I'm sure that the list will be out by the time I finish this sentence. No? Okay. Anyway, here's Super Heavy Samurai.
He's not just gonks, daddy.
So here's the list, and wow, that's a lot of one-ofs. It looks like Gage built this deck. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck just got a huge redesign, but it's still the #1 place to go for a pack simulator, a card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. I personally use the site to post every 10-minute testing list and every Chalice Line Monthly Top Cut entry. Give it a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's slide into Super Heavy Samurai. Super Heavy Samurai is a series of monsters that can attack while in defense position, using the powerful Super Heavy souls to suit up a single monster to hit hard. But that was another life, and another Yu-Gi-Oh! Now their individuality has been stripped, their bodies melted to slag to form the superstructure of a new kind of Super Heavy Samurai. These monsters allow you to abuse non-once-per-turn searches to assemble enough onboard material to make Appaloosa and Baron de Fleur. You know, they say an archetype dies 2 deaths. One, when it's no longer playable, and then again, when Konami releases legacy support that strips it of its identity. And, credit where it's due, these Sasainos are damn good. Super Heavy Samurai Prodigy Wakaushi scales a pendulum from deck, summons itself, and if it's used as synchro material, sets itself back to scale. This, along with Benkai 2, facilitates a setup that is full scales and Baron from, well, pretty much a single card. From there, the rest of the deck is icing. Singletons that increase the strength of your end board, soft garnets to raise the ceiling on your best opens, and non-engine. An insane amount of non-engine. This one's on 17, which, believe it or not, is low. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, the 3 of Super Heavy Samurais. 3 copies of Soul Piercer. This card has an effect that doesn't matter, and then if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a Super Heavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand, not once per turn. Next up is Super Heavy Samurai Wagon. If you have no spell traps in your graveyard, you can change this face-up defense position card to attack position, and if you do, add a Super Heavy Samurai Soul monster from your deck to your hand. After that is Super Heavy Samurai Bike, which if you have no spell traps in graveyard, can be discarded to add a Super Heavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand, except for Motorbike. After that, we've got 3 copies of Super Heavy Samurai Prodigy Wakaushi. If you have no spell traps in graveyard, you can put a Super Heavy Samurai Pendulum monster from your deck, except itself in your other zone, then special summon this card, and as a monster, if you have no spell traps in your graveyard, you can discard a monster to special a Super Heavy Samurai from your hand or deck in defense position, though that locks you into Super Heavies, so you usually won't be using it. If it's used as synchro material and added to your extra deck face up, you can put it in your Pendulum zone. Finally, we are on 2 copies of Super Heavy Samurai Monk Warrior Big Benkai. If you control a Super Heavy Samurai monster, which you will because you're getting this off of Wakaushi, you can add a Super Heavy Samurai Soul monster from your deck to your hand. After that, we have a ton of one-ofs. Super Heavy Samurai Scales, which on normal or special can target a level 4 or lower Super Heavy Samurai monster and special summon it. Super Heavy Samurai Soul Gaia Booster, which can target a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, equip it from your hand or field to that monster. And if you have no spell traps in your graveyard and this card is equipped to a monster by this card's effect, you can special summon it. 1 copy of Super Heavy Samurai Spy, which if you have no spells or traps in your graveyard can be special summoned, and if you have no spells or traps in your graveyard, you contribute it to target a spell trap in your opponent's graveyard, set it to your field, but banish it when it leaves. Super Heavy Samurai Soul Horns, which can target a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, equip it from your hand or side of the field to the target. It gets 2 attacks during the battle phase and can be special summoned. And finally, Super Heavy Samurai Soul Piercer, which can target a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, equip it from your hand or field to the target, and while equipped, that monster has to be attacked. It can be tributed to special summon a Super Super Heavy from your deck. After that, we've got some other one-ofs. Ancient Gearbox, which when added from the deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, adds an Earth Machine type monster with 500 attack or defense from your deck to your hand. You usually get this off of Ancient Gear Ballista in your extra deck. Infinitrack Tunneler, which, what do you know, has 500 defense, can tribute an Earth Machine monster to special summon itself from your hand, and can be banished from the graveyard to target 5 Earth Machine monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, then draw 2 cards. Jizikuru, the Star-Destroying Kaiju, is a kaiju that can be searched off of Cleafor Genius, and speaking of Cleafor Genius targets, Therion King Regulus is an Omni-Negate, which can be searched off of its effect. We've got 2 Kashtira Fenrir, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Ogre, 3 Gamma and a Driver, 3 Droll and Lockbird, and 2 Nibiru, the Primal Being in the extra. We've got Baron de Fleur. We have Ass Dragon, Super Heavy Samurai Ninja Sarutobi, which destroys spell traps. It comes up pretty frequently. Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder, Gigantic Champion Sargus. This kind of screws up Kashtira end boards because it can trigger when a detach occurs. We've got Gear Gigant X Baguska, Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, Merrymaker to make the Sargus, Apollosa, Unicorn, Cleafor Genius, which when 2 monsters are special summoned at the same time 2 zones this card points to, allows you to add a level 5 or higher machine monster from your deck to your hand. Ancient Gear Ballista, which on Link Summon can add an Ancient Gear or a Gear Town from your deck to your hand, and 2 copies of Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow. This has to be made with 1 Super Heavy Samurai monster, can't be used as Link material, and while you have no spells or traps in your graveyard, can discard a monster to target a Super Heavy Samurai in your graveyard and special to a zone this card points to. In the side, we've got 2 additional Jizikuru, 1 Druis Worm, 3 Magnamut, 3 Retaliating Sea, 3 Archfiend Eccentric, and 3 Effect Veiler. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Sprite, and oh, you must think you're the cleverest lad on Clever Island, going first in main deck Anti-Spell Fragrance. Anyway, this game showcases that you actually don't even need to use Wakaushi to win games. Our opponent's going to go Beaver into Beaver and make a Sprint. Sprint is going to send an Angler from deck to the graveyard. Angler is going to summon a Beaver. Then they will overlay for a copy of Gigantic. They'll activate Gigantic, will Ash Blossom here, and what a productive turn. They're going to set 2 and pass back to us. This is rough, but we still should be able to get it done. We're going to begin with a copy of Bike that's going to eat an Ash Blossom. Afterwards, we can go ahead and special summon a copy of Fenrir and activate the effect to get another one in hand. Then we'll go ahead and normal summon this copy of Scales. Scales on normal is going to bring back this copy of Bike. We'll activate Bike in order to modulate the level, and then let's go into Ass Dragon, bringing back the Bike and making Baron. We'll use Baron here in order to pop this copy of Gigantic Sprite, and then we can go to the battle phase and use the effect of Fenrir to banish this copy of Anti-Spell Fragrance face down. We'll get in for 24 and 3,000 before passing it back to our opponent with Ash Blossom and Droll backup. They'll draw for turn and concede. Our second match is up against Tri-Brigade Sprite, and I swear to God we're going to win a die roll one of these games. Our opponents going first are going to begin with a Sprite Starter that's going to summon from deck a copy of Sprite Blue, which will add from deck to hand a Sprite Jet. They're going to special summon that Jet and activate the effect. That's going to grab a Smashers from deck to hand. Next, they're going to make a Sprint, and that Sprint is going to send from deck to graveyard an Angler. We're going to Ash Blossom the Angler here, which is unfortunate because they have the kit in hand already. They're going to overlay for a Gigantic, activate the effect of the Gigantic, detaching the kit, then activate the kit in graveyard in order to send a Nerval. That Nerval is going to add from deck to hand a copy of Karas before they activate the effect of Kit for 2, summon a Farajit, and then activate the effect of the Farajit to summon the Karas. From here, they can make a copy of Sprint to trigger the effect of the Farajit to cycle a card, then go Karas for 2 in order to go into Bear Broom. From this position, they can make a Pit Knight early, activate the effect of the Bear Broom in order to grab a copy of Revolt, set 2, and pass. Alright, we're going to start with a copy of Bike. That Bike's going to get us a Wakaushi. We'll activate Wakaushi. We're going to activate the effect of the Wakaushi in order to summon it and set a Big Benkai. They're going to go Sprint here in order to get rid of that Wakaushi. We'll set it again. They will Smashers, banishing both their Gigantic and our Big Benkai. Then afterwards, we're going to normal summon a Bike and go into Scarecrow. We'll activate Scarecrow. They're going to chain Revolt in order to summon from their graveyard and banish zone 4 different Tri-Brigade monsters. From here, they can go to Shureg. We're going to bring back the Bike, and then at point of resolution, they'll activate Nerval and early and Shureg in order to negate our Bike, banish our Wakaushi, and then they'll have material to stop our Soul Piercer after resolving this Sprite Starter. But they don't even really need to use it because the last unknown is Ash Blossom. Sometimes they just have it all. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Kashtira, and they are going first, as ever. Thankfully, their hand is just terrible. They're going to go Rise Heart into a copy of Kashtira Theosis. They'll go into a Unicorn, activate the effect of the Unicorn, which is a prime time for Psyframe Gear Gamma. We're going to pop that sucker, and they will just pass turn here. They're going to get a Birth into the banished zone, banish the top 3 of our deck, and pass back. We draw a Wakaushi, so we should be able to do this. We'll go Wakaushi, and then special summon a Fenrir. We'll activate the effect of the Wakaushi in order to set Big Benkai, then we'll activate Big Benkai in order to grab from deck to hand a Soul Gaia Horns and walk directly into a Droll and Lockbird. This permits us to banish their Rise Heart face down, and we can summon this Soul Gaia Horns in order to make an Gas Dragon eventually. We'll go Scarecrow in order to bring this back, and then 8 into 2 into Set Scales into, of course, a copy of Baron de Fleur. We'll go to the battle phase, hidden for 24, 3k, and this is maybe a little greedy. I do not negate the evenly matched here because there's a negate on the Baron and my opponent's on 2 cards. What are the chances they're both playable? They're going to go for a Rise Heart here, banishing this copy of Theosis. They'll Theosis back this copy of Birth. They'll activate Birth, we will Baron, and I am counting my chickens. And then they fail to hatch. Down comes Triple Tactic Tasking. We will Droll Lockbird afterward, but Kashtira Theosis is still really good. It allows them to go Ogre into a 7, and Big Eye is one of those. They'll go Big Eye and then attack directly with this copy of Baron de Fleur before passing turn to us. We draw an Ogre, which does contest the Baron de Fleur's standby phase effect. We'll go ahead and pop that bad boy and then pass it back. Hopefully whatever we draw can beat Zeus, because they're going directly to combat, hitting for 26, and then overlaying for the big robot boy. We'll draw for turn, and, well, one of the downsides of playing so many non-engine is sometimes you draw them. So it's time for game 2, and finally we're going first. Unfortunately, we've drawn what appears to be the worst hand our deck can produce, made even worse by the existence of the Droll and Lockbird in our opponent's grip. God, do I love this format. Now, this kind of works out for us because as we Fenrir and get Drolled, our opponent may think that the remainder of our hand is really powerful engine stuff that we just don't have access to. As a result, they might go off really hard and walk directly into Nibiru. They're going to go Unicorn into Theosis, into Fenrir, into Rise Heart to hand. After that, they're going to go ahead and fire off the Rise Heart, summoning it from their hand, and going into a Shangri-Ira. They're going to Rise Heart for Scare Cash here, and then activate Shangri-Ira to start locking our zones. Down comes a Rise Heart, down comes Tear Lament Kashtira. They're going to trigger the effect of the Rise Heart and the Tear Cash in sequence. They can also use the Theosis to get back this Scare Cash, and then afterwards they will go ahead and activate the effect of the Rise Heart to put the Nibiru under it. They'll go Scare Cash, banishing the Big Bang, and trigger the effect of the Big Bang in order to cycle one of the material under the Shangri-Ira, and yeah, this is pretty much the most profitable Nibiru that I can even imagine. Our opponent does have a copy of the Pot of Prosperity at Point of Resolution, but it's got to find pretty much exactly Birth, and even then it's not fantastic because they already made a Rise Heart once this turn. Unfortunately for our opponent, they find Hot Nothing. They're going to take the ball and just threaten that we don't build a big board unless we can also kill them. I don't think we can, but we can make something happen. We're going to go Scarecrow here. We can bring back the Scales. Scales triggers, bringing back the Spy. Then at Point of Resolution, we can go into Ballista. Ballista gets us another material. We just want the box in hand. We already have the target as well. Tunneler into Nightmare Unicorn. We can spin that token so we don't die to it. And let's go ahead and normal some of the box to go into a 2-mat Apo. Trigger the effect of the Infinitrack Tunneler at a point that our opponent can't possibly interact with us. Draw a couple of cards, and honestly, 2-mat Apo plus Droll plus Ash feels pretty good from this position. We'll pass back to our opponent, who draws for turn, and Santa Claus isn't going to do it. They're going to tribute over our rock, give us the big boy. We'll get a couple of draws, one at end step and one in draw phase, and then let's just walk in for lethal. Let's go ahead and normal summon that wagon. We'll activate the effect to switch it back to attack position, and then go for a Soul Gaia booster. At Point of Resolution, we will activate the effect of the Soul Gaia booster to summon itself, and then overlay for a Gear Gigant X before proceeding to the battle phase and walking in for the remaining damage. So it's time for that all-important Game 3, and oh, look at all this non-engine. Oh, yikes. Our opponent's drawn only their linear game plan, so what will happen when Kashtira, the stoppable force, contends with Superheavy Samurai, the movable object? They're going to begin with a copy of the Pressure Planet before going for a Unicorn. They're going to activate the effect of the Unicorn. That's a decent effect failure, I feel. Afterwards, they'll fire off a Theosis, we'll Ash Blossom and hope for the best. Unfortunately, they have one more thing to do. That's Rise Heart. They'll go Rise Heart here in order to banish a copy of Fenrir, and then they will overlay for a Shangri-Ira. Shangri-Ira set 1 pass, honestly, pretty good. That's a Super Heavy Samurai, at least. They'll go for a Unicorn. We're going to go ahead and set this copy of Eccentric. We're going to Eccentric target the back row, but unfortunately, they can chain the prep, which allows them to summon back this copy of Fenrir. After that, we're going to special summon our own Fenrir and go to the battle phase. We can use the Fenrir to banish this Unicorn face down, but unfortunately their Fenrir can then banish our Fenrir. That's going to trigger Shangri-Ira, and from here we have to normal summon the Super Heavy Samurai Soul Horns and use the effect of Regulus in order to grab it back. You know, it's one negate. Our opponent's going to draw for turn. That's an Ash. They're going to go for the effect of Shangri-Ira. We will go for Regulus, which negates it, but honestly, we're just delaying the inevitable. They're going to banish the remainder of our board. Yep, Soul Horns wasn't sufficient. So we're back with the deck, and they weren't lying. Those Super Samurai do be heavy. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, the deck has a massive amount of room for non-engine. Fairly often, you're going to end on a full board with 2 to 3 hand traps backing it up. 2, it's flexible. There's a lot of end boards you can make, such as adding Spell Canceller or FTKing. The world is your oyster with very minor deck list changes. And 3, Wakaushi's insane. It's extremely powerful and searchable, and it gets you full combo. It's honestly criminal how good this card is. Circular tier. And the cons. 1, so there's this card, and, change roll. This deck searches all the time, and its life depends on it. Droll will often end your turn and decide the game on the spot. 2, Gamma can catch bad players, but better ones will hand trap you onto very low power end boards. And 3 is a lack of spell traps. The gimmick of Super Heavy Samurai cuts off access to consistency tools, board breakers, and going first auto wins like anti-spell fragrance. All in all, the deck is strong, but at present I don't think it's better than Kashtira. Still, a very clearly high-tier deck. Expect to see a lot of it around, and expect to see a lot of Drolls in your future. Thanks so much for watching. A huge shouts out to all my patrons, but specifically, Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Apocalypse978, Brett Henry, Bizen Queen, Chaotic Meatball, Kristen Malone, Crispy, Da Bears, Darkmaster Zork, DJ Elephant, Executive Slifer, John Piet, Jordan Kuntz, King Magic Ruler, Knight Mary, Luis Hernandez, Materiality, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, NH6574, Puffins of Doom, Rose Lapine, Soft Dough, Solar Flare, The Hollow King, Tootsie, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Wonder Waffle, Yuki, and Yor. I couldn't have done it without you.